Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be starting shortly. Good morning, good morning. Hope everyone is doing fine. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, but thank you so much for already being here today. I see more people are slowly joining us. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be starting shortly. Okay, I think we can slowly start. So, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Once again, my name is Stephanie. I'm part of the Migration Youth and Platform team, and welcome to another one of our capacity building meetings, sessions that are part of the Youth on the Move program. And today we're going to be focusing on the Global Compact on Refugees, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. Before we proceed, though, please note that we do have translation for this meeting into French. So if you would like to hear this meeting in French, you can click on the globe that should be at the bottom of your screen here on Zoom, and then you can choose the preference. So you can choose either English or French if you prefer. If you have any issues with that, please let me know accordingly as well. And this is an overview of today's agenda. I'm just gonna give you a quick welcome and a check-in. Then I'm gonna hand it over to our amazing speaker today, Simon, who's gonna be telling us a little bit more about the Global Compact on Refugees. Then we're gonna have some time for Q&A and then closing and next steps as well. So here are just some housekeeping rules. So if possible, please do turn your camera on. We would love to see you. If not, that's also okay. We understand that maybe you're in a space where that doesn't allow so, or the internet connection is not that great. For the name and the pronouns, please do write your name and your pronouns in your Zoom description, such as you can see here in the example, just so we know how to properly address you. Also, please do keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking, and do use the raise your hand feature to ask any questions or contribute. I also kindly ask everyone to be courteous to all participants and speakers as well. And if you do have any technical problems, please feel free to message me, and you can see my name privately over here. So thank you so much for following these guidelines to ensure, of course, a positive session for everyone here. So without further ado, I would like to do some introductions and check-in. So it would be great if you can introduce yourselves in the chat, letting us know your name, the country where you're from, or where you're currently based. And maybe if you just want an icebreaker to reply to the question below. And I can give an example since I'm already speaking. So hi, everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm currently based in Belgium. And the last border that I crossed was actually from England to Belgium as well. So that's an example. Would love to hear from everyone here. If you want, please introduce yourselves in the chat as well. This is just a quick overview of what the Youth in the Move capacity building sessions are. So they have been running throughout the year, and this is the 5th session happening. So based on feedback, we've slightly adapted the format and the frequency as well. And for example, we have live French interpretation, which is available as well. So this is aimed at building youth capacity on several topics related to migration and displacement. And important, those who attend this and the last session in November will be able to receive a certificate as well, just so you know. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing speaker for today. So Mr. Simon Marot Tulum is a South Sudanese refugee in Uganda. He serves as the Policy and Advocacy Officer at the Global Refugee Youth Network, or GRIN. Marot is also the co-founder and team lead at African Youth Action Network, AYAN. So AYAN is a social enterprise championing peace, building, and economic empowerment of refugees, other displaced, and host community youth in Uganda refugee settlements. He's a member of the steering committee for the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative and for the Job Tech Refugees Community of Practice. In 2018, Marot served as a member of the inaugural African Union Youth Advisory Council. He was also invited at the South Sudanese peace talks in Ethiopia and Sudan to represent South Sudanese refugees in Uganda. He was nominated among the 100 most influential young Africans in leadership and civil society by Africa Youth Awards in 2019. And he recently received a distinguished award for service to refugees and IDPs at the Uganda Muslim Youth Development Forum inaugural Peace Gala in 2021. Marot received a bachelor's in petroleum geoscience and production at Macquarie University through an exclusive DAFI scholarship. So without further ado, Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. You're welcome to the session, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Next slide. So I'm going to have a conversation with you. Once again, thank you for joining the call, and I look forward to interacting with you. I will be briefly taking us through the Global Compact on Refugees, the brief background of the GCR, the objectives of the GCR, the processes that were involved, and how young people were actually engaged during, before, and even today after the GCR was passed on the 17th of December in 2018 at the UN Nations General Assembly. Next slide. So why are we here on this call today? Is there anyone maybe who can give me one or two reasons as to why we're actually here? You can actually drop it on the chat. I'll read maybe one or two from the chat, and then we can actually continue. Why are you joining the call today? Is there anyone who can maybe respond to that briefly on why you're actually joining the call today? If not, you can actually come in maybe later during the Q&A session. Okay, you see how you can make an impact. That is very good. Thank you so much for sharing why you're actually here today. So we are here first to really unpack the Global Compact on Refugee Framework. What is it, and who is it meant for? And what are the objectives of this GCR, and what processes were followed to have the GCR document passed on the 17th of December 2018. And then we will explore how young people engage before, during the processes of the GCR, and then also after the process was passed by the General Assembly. And lastly, for you who are actually joining us today, we will then identify opportunities for you to engage in your community, and also some of the challenges that you might actually face as you're actually engaging in your own community, or some of the challenges that the young people who actually participated in the process of drafting of the GCR, what challenges they actually face, and how some of these challenges can actually be addressed. And also how maybe this might also be able to affect you in the long run as you also continue to engage on the GCR processes. Next slide. So what is the GCR? The GCR, which is commonly known as the Global Compact on Refugees, was affirmed by the General Assembly in December 2018 after 2 years of extensive consultation meetings that were led by the UNHCR with member states, with international organizations, with refugees, refugee-led organizations, civil society organizations, the private sector, and different experts. GCR is a tool, or you can actually call it a framework, for more that the states wanted to use for predictable and equitable responsibility sharing. So as shared in the New York Declaration in 2016, UNHCR was tasked by a member state to lead the process to develop a roadmap and develop guidelines and a framework that will lead to the Global Compact on Refugees. The member states that are actually supporting UNHCR, they wanted to know how best they can actually be able to predict before refugees are actually maybe received in a country, and also how the countries that are hosting refugees, the host communities there, are able to be able to predict or be supported in order for them to be able to share these responsibilities. So the document actually recognizes that a sustainable solution to refugees situation cannot be achieved by one state. For example, if you are in Kenya or you are in Uganda or you are in Colombia, they cannot, the country that are hosting refugees or the country that are supporting refugee situation, they cannot do these things alone. They cannot achieve these things alone without international cooperation. They cannot achieve a lot of things without working together. So therefore, the GCR provide a blueprint for your government, for your local or national organization, for international organizations and other stakeholders to ensure that the host communities get the necessary support that they need, and that the refugees can actually lead a dignified and productive life wherever they actually hosted, whether in Uganda, in Kenya, in USA, in Colombia, in Brazil, or in Germany. So it's a tool that provides us, including you and including the member state, with a unique opportunity to change the way the world actually responds to refugee situations, benefiting both the refugees and then the host communities, so that there are no conflicts. There are no conflict between the refugees and the communities that are actually hosting them. So when you have the document, you will find that there are about four different parts, major parts of the Global Compact on Refugees. It has the introduction, settings, which is set out the background, the guiding principle for the GCR, which also set out the objectives of the Global Compact, which we are going to shortly see. And then the comprehensive refugee response framework, which they call the CCRRF, as agreed by the member state in New York during the New York Declaration in 2016, which gave UNHCR now the mandate to actually go and develop further this program. And then also the third part of this is a program of action that is setting out concrete measures or steps that each and everyone can actually take in order for member states, for host communities, or for refugees to be able to follow and actually meet the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees. This include maybe arrangements to share burden and responsibility through a refugee forum, which happens every 4 years. The last one was in 2023. We have the IGAD Plus in Eastern African region or the IGAD member state. We had the SULA protocol in the South America, plus other tools for funding, partnership, and data gatherings and sharing. So areas in need of support and maybe from recognition to admission to meeting needs and supporting community members. All these are actually in the third part of the Global Compact on Refugees. And the last one is arrangement for a follow-up and review. So in case people go to the Global Refugee Forum and they make pledges, they make things, they commit to things that they're actually going to be doing. After every 2 years, the member state come together and say, you know what, okay, in the last year, you actually promised that you're going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a member state. Now, what are you doing? Or what have you done? How far are you with your commitment? For example, this year, we'll have the 2025 Global Refugee Forum Progress Review, which sometimes they call the high-level official meetings, happening from the 15th to the 17th of December 2025 in Geneva. So this is part of the Global Compact on Refugee documents. And I hope some of you will be able to be there, or maybe in case you are there in person or happen to be there, we can actually be able to meet in person. Next slide. So the GCR has got 4 objectives, which include: one is easing pressure on countries hosting refugees. For example, Uganda, by the time that when the GCR was formed, it had about refugees. Turkey had over 4 million refugees. Syria, mainly from Syria, Kenya, Colombia, and other countries actually were hosting refugees. So the GCR was really to look at how do we ease the pressure because these countries are having their own national issues, and they have their own population that they also want to take care of. But now the GCR is to help them and say, okay, since you're also committing to also receive refugees here, we want to actually ease the pressure on you, pressure on your natural resources, pressure on you as a country. The second objective is to enhance refugee self-reliance. So remember, at the start of the GCR, member state wanted to predict, they wanted a predictable and a suitable, sustainable refugee response, and a situation where refugees can actually live a productive and dignified lives. So the second objective focuses on self-reliance. How can refugees work when they're in Uganda, when they're in Kenya, or when they're in the USA? The third objective is to expand access to third country solutions through resettlement, labor mobility, education mobility. Now we have, for example, the student refugee program, which has expanded. We have young people now going for the UNICO scholarships in Italy and other parts of European countries. We have seen students going to Belgium. We have seen students going to the Columbia University in the USA. We have seen MasterCard Foundation expanding their partnership and ensuring that refugee students actually get opportunities for education. For the last 5 months, my colleague that I was working with in Uganda actually settled to Italy through the labor mobility. He was able to be employed in one of the IT companies in Italy. Now he has been in Italy for 5 months. So those are all outcomes of the Global Compact on Refugees, which is to expand on third country solutions for refugees. So these opportunities are all opening up today because of the GCI. Private sector, member states are completing their pledges in different ways. That's why GCR is actually in action for you and for me today. Lastly, is to support conditions for safe and dignified returns to countries of origin. So, for example, I and 9 other refugees from South Sudan were engaged in the South Sudan peace talks, and then we also participated online on the national dialogue for process for South Sudan. This one is to ensure that the voices of refugees, the voices of those who are in IDP camps are considered in national processes. And they also make sure that the voices of people who are affected by conflict are considered when we're addressing the root causes of the conflict that actually made us displaced today. So that's why we have the last project objective, which is to support conditions for safe and dignified returns to countries of origin for refugees. Next slides. So like I mentioned before, GCR originated from the 2016 New York Declaration for Refugees. So it is from here where the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was given the task of developing a new global compact on refugees in consultation with states and other stakeholders. So this was building on a comprehensive refugee response framework, which was set out in that declaration. So that process comprised of series of thematic discussions. Thematic discussion in 2017, followed by formal consultations on successive drafts of the text between February and July 2018. These were complemented by hundreds of written contribution and submission from member states and also from other stakeholders, including refugee-led organizations and different experts. The Global Compact on Refugees was officially affirmed by the UN General Assembly on the 17th of December 2018, paving a way for this new international framework to be implemented and also to bring tangible benefit for refugees and host communities. Groups such as the Global User Advisory Council of UNHCR, Compact members, a group like Network for Refugee Voices, the MIAN Australia, Initiative for Child Rights, among other stakeholders, were all included in this process. The first process was a thematic discussion that happened between July 2017 and November 2017. I actually took part in the October thematic discussions on the different needs. So the first one was, the first thematic discussion happened in July, which was on past and current example of burden and responsibility sharing. The second, which happened in October, from 17th October, was measures at the onset of large refugee movement. The third was meeting needs and supporting communities. And then the fourth one was in pursuit of solutions. The fifth one was cross-cutting issues. These were all different thematic discussion. So after these thematic discussions, member states were also asked, they were invited to write. So in case you are not able to submit everything, you can also write to UNHCR to be able to consider some of your views on the different topics that we had discussed during the thematic discussion. Now, after that was done, there was now a formal consultation on the first draft of the Global Compact on Refugees. So this was done in the beginning of 2018. The first consultation was done from the 14th, I think, to 13th to the 14th of February. The second formal consultation was done in March. The third formal consultation was done in April, and the fourth one was done in May, which I actually attended. The fifth was done in June, and the last one was done in July 2018. So in addition to all this formal consultation, member states, different partners were still asked to also submit written contributions relating to the processes or the drafts that were shared. Next slide. So the compact consists of two parts. And these parts, how they were actually developed or how young people actually engage was very different. So before the GCR, we had young people wrote papers. They wrote recommendations. They also conducted consultation in their own communities to inform GCR on what is actually what is going on. They also inform their community of what is happening. For example, in Uganda, we went to Chiradongo refugee settlement where we consulted and said, by the way, there is a document that is being developed in Geneva. What do you want to be captured in that document? What do you want to see? The change that you would like to see. Now, these were compiled as members of Global Youth Uganda, a member of the Global Youth Advisory Council. We compiled this in a report and sent it to the team at UNHCR. So the specific text in the GCR, for example, the first draft, had different languages on the different issues or the changes that people want to see. Refugees were saying, why do you want to actually have something called burden? Refugees is not a burden, it's a responsibility. So we should not treat it as a burden. We should treat it as a responsibility. And then member states were like, no, how can we say it's a responsibility? We are not responsible for refugees. And then others were like, no, we should remove some of these words. So there was all this back and forth before even the final draft was actually produced. As you can see from the picture, that's my colleague Laura and other youth at the formal consultation sharing some of the recommendations at the panel on the UN Compact in Geneva. Yeah, next slide. During the consultation, we could actually use the nights to draft text, print some few pages, distribute them during the breakout sessions, hand some of them to the connection that we actually have, that we made with the member state, including those who actually came outside during breaks. We could also place some of these printed copies at the entrance, at the exits of the plenary halls, just for one or two member states to actually pick and be able to pick one of these recommendations within the formal consultation. We will also engage in panels on education, on protection, gender-based violence, among others, during the thematic discussion and also during the formal consultation. So my colleague on the picture here is Mgisha, who was then sharing during the closing panels with the co-chairs in 2018 at the formal consultation. Next slide. So after the GCR, then what happened? So there are youth organizations, youth networks, and also members that were invited to the 2019, the first Global Refugee Forum, because the Global Compact on Refugees gave UNHCR the mandate to organize after every 4 years what we call the Global Refugee Forum, where member states can come and say, you know what, we are going to pledge this. We pledged this in the last time, and we're able to commit to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we were invited for the first ever Global Refugee Forum, which was held in Geneva in 2019. Refugee-led organizations, refugees, member states, they pledge what they can actually be able to commit or during sessions, during spotlight sessions, or during side events. So this pledge were then followed in different ways by youth-led organizations, by youth. And then youth were also supported during the pledging session. They actually supported, they pledged on their own, and they also followed up some of these pledges in their own countries of origin, because now you have something to follow a member state on. For example, if Colombia said we are going to include refugees in our national systems, in our education system, now youth in Colombia, refugee youth there, can actually be able to hold the government accountable, even if when they say that what the document is actually non-binding. Or if Uganda say we are going to include refugees in our national development plan. Now, youth-led organizations, refugee-led organizations in Uganda can now work with the Uganda government and also follow up on some of these pledges by region or by country. Next slide. So then how can you, who is actually attending this meeting today, how can you be part of the Global Compact on Refugees? So there is one thing which is called, you submit a good practice. So if you are in Uganda, you are in Kenya, you are in Malawi, you are in Bangladesh, you are in Malaysia, you are in Ecuador or Colombia or Haiti, a country that is maybe a country that is maybe hosting refugees, and you see maybe something that is done by that country, which is something that is good, you can actually submit it online. There is an online digital forum where on the Global Compact on Refugee website, where you can go and be able to actually say, you know what, there is a good practice that I've seen in Kenya. They have included our refugees to stay with the host communities. That is a good practice. Or you can say, oh, there's a refugee organization which is in this country, which is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, they are training young people on how they can engage on forums. That is also a good practice. You can also go and write it and share it, submit it on the Global Refugee Forum pledge. Then you can also participate in reporting on the good practices in your own organization or in your region. For example, now the high-level official meeting or the Global Refugee Forum progress review that is happening in December this year. You can also be able to make sure that if there are people that are going, you are not invited for it. You can also be able to work with them and ensure that some of your views or the good report that you have seen or things that are not working that you have seen in your own place of residence, you actually share it with the team that is actually going. You can join a youth-led initiative and advocate for different provisions in the Global Compact on Refugee. For example, there are groups like RCIT, there are groups like the Global Refugees Network, there are groups like Global Refugees Network that are now engaging on different parts. For example, RCIT ensures that the refugees are actually meaningfully engaged. They participate in any condition or anything that is actually concerning them. How do you also maybe open up? You go and check on them and look at ways of how you can actually engage and participate, take part in some of the work that they're actually doing. Or you can also take part in the Global Refugee Forum or the formal reviews, such as the one which is actually happening in December this year, like I actually mentioned before. Next slide. So what are some of the challenges? Because we did not just engage. There were a lot of things that we also faced when we were actually engaging during or even after the Global Compact on refugees. This challenge engagement did not come without any challenges, like I mentioned. We had plenty of them during, before, and even now after the GCR. Young people face a lot of them. One include the lack of specific data and programming. So we didn't actually have information of how young people young refugees or displaced young people in Bangladesh were actually treated. We didn't have information on how young people in Malaysia were actually struggling, Rohingya struggling, or the other communities. How are they actually struggling? We didn't have data on that or programming on that. There was also a lot of tokenistic participation compared to meaningful participation, where you will see young people actually maybe in meetings, you are invited to a meeting, but then if you ask how much influence are you actually inserting in such kind of spaces for decision, it is very difficult to tell. For example, the peace talks. When we were at the peace talks, they said, no, you people are refugees. So as refugees, you are not part of the conflict. So you cannot participate. You cannot give submission in the plenary. So we were just observing as the other people who were in the what, where the people who were actually in the peace talks, the warring parties, as they were discussing. For us, we were just there, folding our hand and observing. We had to fight to even have a statement to even have a space for us to be able to actually share a statement. So that way, sometimes it is really very crazy. You will find that, yes, there are things that are happening, there are spaces, people are being invited, young people are going taking pictures here and there, but then when you ask, are they really being meaningfully engaged? The answers are really very far sometimes. There was also limited access to decision spaces and leaders. You can be in these spaces. Leaders will only listen to you when you are there. But when you come back to this to a country like Uganda, you go to Kenya, go to other countries, it is very hard for you to actually find some of these leaders or to even be able to meet them. So this lack of space, limited funding, and gatekeeping was also very crazy. Lastly, was the language barriers and also travel restriction. So these meetings are always happening. Sometimes they happen in Geneva, they happen outside of our countries of origin. So you'll find that young people don't have their passports, they don't even have the travel documents under there. Even when they have a travel document for them to get the visa, it is really very crazy. Sometimes it's a lot of hard work. So how do we then also ensure that we as young people are able to look into some of these challenges, address some of them, and also maybe work with the host communities or the countries that are actually hosting us to ensure that some of these challenges are actually lessened. Next. During there are a lot of things that we actually learned during the Global Refugee Forum. But amidst some of those challenges and the things that we really learned, we really felt that young people, we as the young people, we make up to 50%. If you go to Uganda, you go to most of this displacement setting, the majority of the people who are there are young people who are either below the age of 30, who are either below the age of 15, or even 18. If we make up to 80% of the displaced population, so it means we need to be able to actually take action. The future that people are talking about, our future is now. It is not tomorrow. It is even not yesterday. Global Compact on Refugees is a living and a changing document. So let us shape it. Let's shape how it is implemented at local, regional, and global level. Get a copy of the Global Compact on Refugees, understand it, get one or two provision of it, and make sure that the global compact on refugees in your country or where you're actually residing is really speaking to the commitment that you actually made there. You can share it. You can actually be able to speak about it. You can also hold some of these members accountable to what they actually committed to be able to do on the. Lastly, is let us engage now as a team with a strong and a bold call and a voice. Even if the voices are really still checking or they are really scattered, let us stop. You never know who is listening. You never know who is there, who is able to actually give us a listening here, who is able to open for us some of these doors. So let us speak. Let us ensure that we continue engaging wherever we are. Next slide. So these are just some of the snapshots from the forums. The first one is how we were actually engaging at the Global Compact on Refugees during the thematic discussion, during the formal consultation. We could come there sometime 3 days, sometime a week, even before the formal consultation starts, so that we can actually be able to prepare. So you can see there, we're like, okay, on Sunday, you have a timetable. What do you want to do? You review some of the agenda, the different objectives. You look at the different items that are actually captured there. You look at maybe if there are draft documents. You check on the different thing. You make sure that you even put your recommendations together. One thing that we found out was very helpful to us is that when we're in some of these spaces, you are given only 2 minutes. Now, when you're given 2 minutes, if you're going to write there 10 recommendations, who is going to listen to you? No one is going to listen to you. You need to make sure that you revise your submissions. They should only be able to pick in 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes. And then, as you can also see, we've also divided ourselves because we were very few. So you'll find that as others are there engaging, we could actually divide ourselves. One person goes through one thematic discussion, another one goes to second thematic discussion to just go and listen. You go and listen whether people actually captured some of your what uh, whether some of the provision or the recommendation that you made to these member states are actually captured. So you go and listen. Oh, have they mentioned about youth in this forum? Oh, have they mentioned about youth in this session? In the evening, we will come and sit together and then say, what did we do better and what did we not actually do better? And then if there is maybe someone who has been put in a panel, we know that, okay, Simon is going to speak on a panel. We make sure that all the member states come together, all the youth groups come together to give Simon a support. You prepare before the session, you prepare at the session, and even when you actually deliver in the session, the young people will be there to actually share you up and also be able to give you that confidence. The picture in the middle is a panel that we actually took part in with the Network for Refugee Voices, with the then Vice Deputy Commissioner for Refugees, who is now, I think, the Commissioner for Human Rights. And then the other pictures are young people in different spaces during our lunch break, during our tea breaks, during our preparatory meetings, or at the UNHCR meetings, at the UNHCR offices, I mean, in Geneva. So it was really a very intense sessions. It was also exciting and also a space for us to be able to learn. Some of these things we actually learn them throughout the processes. But now you guys are actually getting some of this information prior to this. So the spaces are opening up. It's up to you. It's up to us, the young people, to actually be able to take up these spaces. I thank you, and I'm happy to actually hear from you in case there are any questions, in case there are anything that need clarity. Over to you, Stephanie, to moderate the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon, for this great session. Very informative. I see there are already questions rolling in the chat, but for everyone, if you do have questions, please also feel free to interact with Simon. Feel free to raise your hand as well. So let me just go to the first question that we got. It was from Fauzia. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. They asked, where the Global Refugee Forum will take place. And then they also asked whether your organization, the GRIM, supports and facilitates participants assistance. Apologies. Did you hear the question, Simon?
Yes. So the first question is on where the Global Refugee Forum takes place. So the Global Refugee Forum takes place in Geneva. The last one was in December 2023. That was in December in Geneva. This year, there is now going to be a Global Refugee Forum progress review. So the Global Refugee Forum happens every 4 years. The first one was in 2019. The second one was in 2023. Now, between, there is what we call progress review. Now, this year, 2025, because it is now 2 years since the second Global Refugee Forum, there's going to be another review, which is happening in Geneva from the 15th to the 17th of December this year. The Global Refugee Youth Network, we do actually sometimes work with different partners. We also do work with different institutions that are actually able to sponsor, that are also able to support youth-led organizations or youth to actually take part in the global refugee forums, or even sometimes we also do recommend. We recommend you. We actually do have a list of young people that actually are interested in engaging in some of these advocacy events. So in case an institution reach out to us and say, oh, we want a young person to engage in this place, or to maybe go to the refugee forum to be part of our delegation. So we then recommend some of the people that actually are within our network, and then we ensure that they are prepared before the event, they are prepared during the event, they are supported, and even after the event, they are also supported to make sure that they still follow up. So this year, the invitation, I think, went out already. Most of the institutions that are going to take part were invited in June this year. Some of them they are now just waiting for their invitation letters from UNHCR for them to actually be able to apply for visas, prepare for the visas, and also go to Geneva. But then, yes, it also happened in Geneva. So the next forum will happen in 2027. So 2027, if you're still interested in some of this forum, make sure that you engage. There are also like quarterly reviews meeting that happens online. They happen online, and I can also be able to maybe share in case the next one actually is shared maybe after the forum, the next quarter, then I can also be able to share the links with Stephanie to also share with each and every one of you, so that when you have the time, you can also be able to find some of those information. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing that on.
No worries. Thank you so much, Simon. And I saw that we had a hand up, I think from Tamzir. If you still want to come in, Tamzir, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And that was a very insightful presentation. Can you confirm if you can hear me, please?
Yes,
Yes.
you're audible.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, good morning from my end, joining from the Netherlands. So, um, yeah, based on the presentation, I actually understood, like, um, I will direct my question on the issue about the global compact on refugees and also the global compact on migration, because I actually understood or understand that these two high-level events are really important, especially in the within the refugee convention. So my question will be, how will government and UN processes ensure? Because I know for sure, like, if you're talking about refugees and migration, issues about climate mobility or human mobility due to climate change cannot also be overshadowed. So how can government and UN processes ensure that the global compact on refugees and the global compact for migration explicitly integrate climate mobility so that refugees and displaced people attracted by climate change are not left out? Because it's really important that at least some of these discussions in some of our high level events and forums include some of these issues about human mobility due to climate change, taking reference of the International Court of Justice advisory opinion recently that mentioned about human mobility due to climate change. So how do we ensure that things like that are integrated in the discussions on the global compact on refugees and the global compact on migration as well? So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tamshir, for sharing about the two compact, the global compact on migration and also the global compact on refugees. What I focused today on was the global compact on refugees. The one on migration, much as they were all together, the member state in 2016 had the New York Declaration actually gave tasks to the teams that are actually in charge. The global compact on refugees was the task was given to UNHCR to actually lead the processes, the roadmap, develop a roadmap, and actually ensure that the global compact on refugees is actually worked on. The global compact on migration, this was tasked to I think IOM. I think it should be IOM. They were all discussed differently, separately. So I took part so much on the global compact on refugees, which was championed by UNHCR. But both papers really tackles different things differently, and that's why I also mentioned that what these papers or these documents are living documents. First of all, they are non-binding, so the state you cannot even hold the state accountable, even if they can pledge, but then if they have not done anything, there is no penalty for it. But then so that's why this document, since they are living document, it's now upon you to go on and say, okay, this country, what is the interest of the country that is hosting refugees, let's say Kenya? What is the interest of a country like Uganda? What is the interest of a country like Germany? What is the interest of a country like the Netherlands? What are they interested in? So when you actually know what they are interested in, and then you can now align your intervention. You can then also align your approaches to ensure that refugees or people who are actually affected by migration are also having their voices actually considered. For example, things to do with the changes in climate right now. What are some of these causes of the climate change? Maybe a country doesn't even understand why it is important for them to be able to include climate refugees or refugees that are actually displaced due to the severe the flash flood that we have, or communities that are displaced because of the prolonged drought or unpredictable rainfall. They may not really be able to understand. They may not even see some of the causes of some of these changes in the climate, which are maybe caused by refugees or they are caused by host communities or by. But when you're able to educate them, you're able to do a research as a local group or as a youth-led organization or a refugee-led group or a migrant-led group, you can be able to present some of these findings and even convince the states to be able to listen to you. That way, you'll be able to ensure that these people are actually not left behind, but they're actually part of their different compacts. I see Allah.
And just so I can come in quite quickly as well, we had a session, so previous to this one, so as Simon mentioned, we are focusing on this one, on the Global Compact for Refugees. The previous session we had in July was actually focusing on the GFMD, the Global Migration Forum for Development, and the Global Compact on Migration. And we do have those links up on our YouTube and on our web. So I'm just gonna drop it here as well. So Tamzir, if you're interested or if you need to share it with someone, please feel free to make use of those, of that content as well. And yes, Ala was next.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this session. I'll make it quick and direct. My question is, how does the GCR address accountability for the states that fail to uphold the refugee rights? Thank you very much.
So if I get your question very well, you're asking how is the GCR able to hold accountable states that are not upholding refugee rights. So like I mentioned in I think it was the first or the second slide, the GCR is a non-binding document. So you cannot say, hey, you actually committed to you even did pledge to support or host refugees in the last forum. Why have you not done that? So you cannot be able to actually do that. That is the most the toughest thing that we actually face sometimes when we're actually engaging on these spaces. But then the GCR helps us or even gives us a space for us to actually be able to voice, to actually be able to speak on some of these things. Because until when we speak on some of these things that we're actually facing, or the rights that are not actually upheld, the rights that are not even given to us, that are not accorded to us, we cannot even be able to have someone actually support us. So when a member state maybe is not supporting the rights of refugees, or they're not giving the rights of refugees, there are clauses. There are paragraphs in the Global Compact on Refugees, which are speaking on the meaningful engagement and participation of refugees, whether refugee leaders or refugee-led organizations. So that is a tool, or that's a space that we can then use to be able to share some of those findings. Maybe the people who are there cannot be able to even maybe share. Maybe a member state, let's say a member state.
Oh, Simon, I think we've lost you. Mid-sentence. I cannot hear you. Apologies, everyone. I think Simon's connection quickly jumped. Let's just wait 1 minute until he's back.
Sorry, I'm not sure why, but
Yeah,
I think.
No worries. Yeah, I think you stopped mid-sentence. No worries. We can see you're back.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the members who are there, the refugees that are in that country, can be able to share some of these things with the other refugees, who then can go to a member state. They can go to a member state that has maybe been at the forefront. They can share some of these hardships, some of these struggles, some of the rights that are actually that are not actually given to some of these refugees. So now that is the GCR gives the refugees the voice, and also the spaces and the tools for them to be able to speak about the things that are not going right. Something that you could not do a long time ago before the GCR was actually adopted. Fauzia?
Thank you. Yeah, Fauzia is next. And then we have 2 questions from the chat that I'll read out loud to you, Simon. But Fauzia, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Simon, for the great and comprehensive session today. Well, as a request, can you please share your email address in the chat?
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Perfect. The next question came on the chat from Durdane. Apologies, I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. And the question, Simon, is how can we make sure self-reliance also actively means opportunity and dignity, not abandonment for young people? And I can also drop that in the chat if that's easier.
Okay, so how do we ensure that self-reliance is with dignity? That's a very wonderful question. Thank you so much for asking that question. So the second objective of the Global Compact on Refugees is on refugee self-reliance. Now, on refugee self-reliance, different opportunities are now opening up. There are different opportunities that are opening up. There are different opportunities that have actually that we didn't even know about before. There is now labor mobility. There is now access to higher education. There is now access to quality medical health. There is also access to third country resettlement through maybe scholarship opportunities. These were not really so much before. But now, because of this GCR, private sectors are able to come in, the different foundations are able to come in, member states are also able to come in to also give support. And then the host communities are also, the host communities and then the hosting governments, for example, in Uganda, where I actually stay, the host communities was able to give land to refugees to be able to farm. Because sometimes dignity to us means you being able to even produce your own food, being able to actually produce what you actually consume. That is like the first way of some of us actually getting dignity, other than just having someone coming every year or every month. At the end of the month, okay, I'm going to give you $50,000, $50 or $100 or $200 at the end of the month. So that to us is not dignity. Some refugees is actually dignity. But now, when a host community is able to come in and say, okay, we have land and you are able to actually produce food for yourself, that to some refugees is actually dignity. Some also are given the opportunity to be able to reach the market. You are not just getting the land, producing the food, and then it is there. No, you're also having access to the market. In some instances, some countries, it is very hard for you to be able to sell your product as a refugee, to even open a business as a refugee, to be able to work for yourself or be able to work or get a work permit. In some countries, it's not possible. But the GCR gives member states that that opportunity to also be able to commit and say, you know what, we're including refugees in our national plans, we're including them in our programs and in activities that actually will be of meaning to them. So that way, you can actually be able to actually have your own self-reliance. The opportunities are not mostly equal. What might be of self-reliance in Morocco, in Uganda, or in Kenya, or in Malawi might be different from an opportunity for self-reliance in Germany, or an opportunity for self-reliance in Canada, or in Jordan, or in Turkey. They might really be very different. But then it's up to also you to really be able to understand what is meaningful to you, understand the provision of the objective 2 of the self-reliance, on the self-reliance, and then be able to engage the communities or the group that you're actually working with.
Thank you so much, Simon. And I see we had another question here in the chat, so let me quickly grab it for you. It's quite a long one from Moses. So Moses says, thank you very much for the insightful discussion, Mr. Marot. So I would like to ask about the intersection of climate change and refugee protection. As we know, climate change is increasingly driving displacement, but many of those affected don't always fit the traditional refugee definition. How can the Global Compact on Refugees more explicitly integrate climate change, both in terms of policy and practical support, so that displaced persons and host communities are better protected and resilient?
Thank you so much, Moses, for the question. As you actually stated very well here, the language of the GCR, the language, the definition of refugees vary from a country to country. In some instances, refugees that are actually as a result of maybe severe floods, as a result of drought, that have run away, they have crossed the international border. Some countries don't want to even recognize them. They don't even want to register them. Some countries do register them. Now, as a refugee-led organization, as a refugee-led group, our role in such instances is now for us to be able to bring the evidence, to generate the evidence on the intersection between climate change and refugee protection. For example, if you are a risk camp, like let's say Kakuma, where even for you to be able to get firewood is very hard, you will find that refugees will have to go maybe at 5 hours, 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning to go and look for firewood, very far from the refugee camp. That way, some of them are raped, some of them are attacked, some of them find the host communities. This is a protection case. But then until when we have the evidence and say, you know what, by the way, because there is lack of energy access in this refugee settlement, there are a lot of protection cases that are resulting because of that. We will not have the member state even understand why there's need for that. Until when we also give them an evidence that, you know what, even if there is no conflict in a country like South Sudan, if part of it, for example, the whole of Upper Nile is flooded, you can take these refugees back. Where will you take them? They will not go to that country, the place which is water. So they will still remain there. So until when there is that evidence and there is that education, we keep on speaking about the need. That way, member state will really be able to actually adapt. It will be also a case-by-case basis. It may not be all the member states. It might be on a case-by-case basis. For example, even a country that maybe might also be facing climate change itself, they might now want to put it as a national policy. They might actually have to plan for it. So in the way of planning for it, and they're also hosting refugees, they are not going to leave refugees today. They're not going to leave the refugees there and say, oh no, we are not focusing on them. Climate change does not affect only the refugees or host community. Regardless of your status, it will affect all of us. So when the country is also maybe drafting a national adaptation plan or a strategy, for example, recently, last week in Uganda, we had over 65 refugees that came from different parts of Uganda, different refugee settlements. They were for a training that was administered by Refugees International and some of the refugee leaders in Uganda. So they brought all these refugee leaders to actually speak about climate change, to speak about the changes that are actually happening in their communities and how some of those voices can be captured in the national adaptation plans of Uganda. So the Ministry of Water and Environment, different ministries that are in charge of the National Adaptation Plan, the Climate Change Adaptation Plan for Uganda, they were able to come and speak to refugees and tell them this is what is happening. Now, that is one way of actually ensuring that the refugee voices are included in national conversation. So it might be different from Kenya. It might be different from Malawi, which is also facing a lot of clones, or it might be also different from Mozambique, from Angola, or from South Sudan, from Jordan, from Turkey or Italy. These people have different ways of addressing this thing. But it's only when you contextualize it and you know where the issues is. If the gap is knowledge gap, can you as young people be able to actually do research and produce knowledge to actually link climate change with protection so that people are able to see and they're able to actually make actions that not only address the root, the symptoms. For example, you will see that there may be a lot of cases of GVV rising in an area. But you don't ask yourself, what is the cause? Now, you just want to address the GVB situation by maybe doing dialogues or community engagement. But then if you're not addressing the root causes, then it means you will not be able to actually have that problem solved completely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. And I think we don't have time for more questions, but we do have a last one. So if that's okay. So it comes from Maurice. And Maurice says, I appreciate the discussion and thank you, Marot. I also have a question still on the Global Compact on Refugees. For example, in Uganda particularly, Adjumani, apologies if I'm not pronouncing correctly, refugee settlement. Refugees face numerous challenges, especially the clean energy mush, as it's being sung over and over, but still refugees still used to go to the bushes, cutting trees in order to cook and use grass in order to provide lighting. This has affected them most, and as refugee youth, I think this is a high time we act and share the ground root information. I'm speaking as someone also experiencing the same issues. Then, how can we handle this?
Thank you so much for actually bringing that up. In Uganda, the districts have got different plans. Uganda government has also got its own different plans. For example, I think there is a recent partnership between the government of Uganda and the World Bank, where they are trying to subsidize the prices for solar products. Where in a district like Chiradongo refugee settlement, Chiradongo district, and where there is refugee settlement called Chiradongo, and also in Madiokola where there is Rhino camp, refugees and host communities, they were given solar. They were not given, but they were they had products like solar home system, which last year, I think 2 years before, was costing 250,000 Ugandan cedis, which is around $70. But right now, they are only required to pay up to $10 to $15 to get the same product. That is one way of the government of Uganda actually rising up or saying, you know what, we need to actually address the energy need. there is a need for energy, yes, in the country, in the entire country. It's not only in the refugee settlement, it's even here, even in Kampala. You will find that people are not using, let's say, electricity because it is very expensive. It's not affordable. People are able to use, they're even using charcoal in Kampala. Now, if people who are in Kampala, who are host communities, who are even able to earn a living, are still not sustainable using energy options like electricity. Now, for us to take it to the refugee camp or to the rural areas in Uganda, it's going to take time. But then, like I mentioned before, until when we continue speaking about these things, until when we actually generate solutions ourselves, and I should be able to create knowledge, generate knowledge, and generate evidence that, you know what, these things, once it's addressed, it's going to address 5, 6 other issues. Because if you address the energy need of a household, you will ensure that the children are able to even study at night. You will ensure that there is self-reliance that you are talking about, because the community, the family there will be able to dedicate some of the time that they are wasting on collecting firewood into maybe other productive or energy or income generating activities. Or the children or the women that are supposed to be maybe collecting firewood, that are supposed to be preparing meals for a long time, will not even have time to dedicate this to other issues. For example, they can use the time to go and read. The girls can actually go to school. So you are just addressing one energy need, but then it is addressing a lot of concerns or a lot of challenges or protection challenges within protection challenges, health challenges, and even education needs for the whole community. But then until when we educate the districts that, you know what, this is the issue, this is the issue, we have to address it this way, they will not be able to actually understand us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon, and apologies, everyone. I saw that we had more questions in the chat, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. Simon shared his email in the chat, so feel free to reach out to him. We're also going to have an afternoon session for other time zones as well. So if you're really keen on hearing the presentation again and chatting with Simon, please join us this afternoon. So yeah, here are some next steps. So again, this was the 5th session of our capacity building series, which is running until the end of the year. And the next and last session is going to be in November. So stay tuned on our social media for that. Sessions are also bi-monthly, taking place twice in the same day for more accessibility. And they're the same session. So there's not going to be any new content. We're still going to be focusing on the Global Compact for refugees. Again, French interpretation is available for the whole session, and the recordings and all the materials will always be shared after the session, because I saw some people asking me. Also, for the participation certificates, please note that we're going to be issuing those after the last session in November. And as a reminder, for those people who attended 2 out of 3 sessions, so either the July, September, and November one. Do stay tuned for more updates about the series. And if you have any doubts about the capacity building session, or you would like to keep in touch, please do write to us, and this is my email, or follow MYCP on social media and visit our website, and you can see where we are on social media. Once again, I would like to thank Simon for the amazing presentation and the lived experience and the expertise that he brought here today. And a huge shout out also to our interpreters, Shafia and Jules, who are here with us today and are making this able for everyone to hear. So thank you everyone for joining, and I hope to see you at our next sessions. Have a great rest of the day.